The best cornerback prospect since Jalen Ramsey. A perfect frame at 6'1", 205. Zero injury history. Feet like derails. Too big, too smart, too technically sound to be beaten. These were some of the praises for Ohio State cornerback Jeff Okudah just days before the 2020 draft. Fast forward just 5 years later, and Okudah is now on his 4th different team. But how did we get here? How did a cornerback compared to the likes of Ramsey and Revis come nowhere near reaching those expectations? Like most times these things happen, I believe it was an abundance of factors. Whether you want to blame injuries, a scheme issue, shout out Matt Patricia, or just a guy who lost all of his confidence at a position like corner where you damn sure need it. The 5-star recruit out of high school committed to the Ohio State University in January of 2017. But just when things were looking up, Jeff lost his mother just days later after a long battle with lymphoma. It's hard to imagine just getting to a new school, only having been to a few classes, and then something tragic like this happens. But in a weird way, this gave Jeff the reassurance that he made the right choice when choosing Ohio State. In his Players Tribune piece, Okudah mentioned the comfort he felt from people around him right when this happened, and specifically included teammates Baron Browning and J.K. Dobbins, as well as defensive coordinator Greg Schiano. He'd come a long way over the next 3 years, going from somebody who, in his own words, did not have his head and heart all the way into it, dating back to spring ball during his freshman year, to being a unanimous first-team All-American defensive back in 2019. After his 2019 season, where he intercepted 3 passes and defended 9, he announced on January 1st of 2020 that he was declaring for the NFL draft. Aside from his college teammate Chase Young, there was a very good chance Okudah would be the first defensive player taken in the draft. Some mock drafts had Okudah going as high as 3rd overall, while others had him more towards the back of the top 10. The ideal fit would have been the Detroit Lions. Not only did they have the 3rd overall pick, but they were the most man-heavy defense in the NFL at the time, which was Okudah's specialty. With Detroit sticking at 3rd overall come draft time, the choice for them felt obvious, and Jeff Okudah was officially a Detroit Lion. No cornerback in the modern draft era had been drafted higher than 3rd overall, and the only other guy to do it at the time was Shawn Springs in 1997. Clearly, the expectations were high, but the team did need someone to fill the shoes of Darius Slay, who was traded to the Eagles a month prior. Before even playing in his first NFL game, the reports were already pretty negative on Okudah, suggesting he was struggling in practice. He had trouble keeping his footing and was outmatched by fellow rookie wide receiver Quintez Cephas and the team's wide receiver 1 Kenny Golladay. Then, once they got to red zone work a week later, the results were not much better. On the bright side, Okudah was the first player to intercept Matthew Stafford at training camp, so it wasn't all bad news. Bad news would soon follow, however, as Okudah was ruled out for the first regular season game due to a hamstring injury. Not only was his confidence a little shaken due to the rough training camp and now this hamstring tweak, but his first 2 wide receiver matchups were future Hall of Famers in their prime, Davante Adams in week 2 and DeAndre Hopkins in week 3. Adams didn't do much, but Hopkins had himself a 10-reception, 137-yard game. On the bright side though, he did have his first career interception off of Kyler Murray, so that was a great moment. From weeks 2 through 8, Okudah was starting most games with Desmond Trufant constantly banged up, but the results were mixed at best. If you're going off PFF's coverage numbers, Okudah allowed over 60 receiving yards in 6 of his 9 games that rookie year. His season ended in week 11 as he attempted to play through ankle, groin, and shoulder injuries. His groin injury would require surgery, but the expectation was he would be 100% for his sophomore season. In fairness, the cornerback position is maybe the toughest to learn for a rookie outside of quarterback. And when you combine that with no preseason games, no joint practices due to COVID, the situation was not easy for him at all. Not to make excuses, but it's valid, and maybe affected some of the failed cornerbacks in that same class. Overall in coverage, Okudah allowed a 77 completion rate and 118 passer rating when targeted, falling severely short of the expectations for a top 3 pick during his rookie season. A key piece that we've yet to cover from the 2020 season for the Lions was they completely cleaned house. Head coach Matt Patricia was fired after his 3rd season, and GM Bob Quinn was let go as well. Now, this could have been looked at as a positive and a negative, and here's why. Matt Patricia was viewed as a pretty bad head coach to say the least, so firing him could maybe lead to a better opportunity with a new and improved coach. The bad news was Okudah was taken taken 3rd overall by the guys that were now fired, and he was a great scheme fit for Patricia's defense once again. Detroit hired Dan Campbell to be their head coach and Aaron Glenn to be their defensive coordinator. Okudah seemed blown away by how much he was learning with these new coaches as compared to last year, and even took a small shot at the previous regime. There was still tons of optimism surrounding Okudah entering his 2nd season, but the elephant in the room was his health and availability. Things were starting to look promising for Okudah entering 2021. He looked much better in practice, more confident, and most importantly was healthy. He had a rough 2021 preseason game against the Steelers, getting beat by Deontay Johnson for a 43-yard touchdown, but aside from that, he looked really good and ready to go as the Lions cornerback 1 to open the season. However, things could not have gone any worse in week 1 as Okudah got lost in coverage, allowing a 79-yard touchdown to Deebo Samuel, and later he ruptured his Achilles, putting an end to his 2021 season after just 1 game. It was really a crushing blow for a kid already struggling with his confidence, trying to learn a new defense, and having to live up to lofty expectations. According to Okudah's aunt, who picked him up from the game, she described what Jeff was like on the ride home, and he was very emotional. For a guy who, in his own words, had high hopes for that season, this end result was devastating. The Achilles would have him miss not only the rest of 2021, but some of the 2022 offseason activities like OTAs and minicamp. A fun fact is Okudah actually reached out to some NBA stars like John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, who had recently recovered from the same injury. With the NFL's jersey number rule change entering 2022, Okudah was able to switch over to his Ohio State number 1, looking to hopefully recapture what he used to be. While the offseason prior had much optimism for Okudah, the skeptics were getting louder as his first 2 years in the NFL were nothing short of disappointing. For someone already mentally tough like Okudah, he handled his Achilles rehab as you would expect, vigorously and enough to get him back on the field for 2022's season opener. The newest concern for a player who already had many was how would this injury affect his physical ability. His athletic metrics aside from his 40 time and bench press were phenomenal, but how much of that would be potentially zapped due to this injury? The good news was Okudah made it back for the preseason and was announced as a starter before the season opener. Luckily, he did stay healthy for majority of the season, playing and starting in 15 of 17 games. He started 2022 off playing extremely well, living up to the player who was compared to Jalen Ramsey coming out of college. He even held Justin Jefferson to a 3-catch, 14-yard game in their Week 3 matchup. In Week 10 at Chicago, Okudah had his 2nd career interception and first touchdown in the NFL off this horrific pass from Justin Fields. But as the year went on, his high-end play became more lackluster and eventually found himself getting benched in the second half of a game against Carolina in Week 16. While his tackling and run defense were up to snuff, his coverage ability was not. After being benched, there were only 2 games remaining for Detroit, and they decided to play Mike Hughes majority of the reps, sending Okudah for the sidelines for most plays. Although it sounded like the coaching staff had his back, actions do speak louder than words, and the Lions made their opinions loud and clear when trading Okudah to the Falcons for a 5th-round pick. Less than 3 years ago, he went 3rd overall. He was now being swapped for the 159th overall pick. It was an exciting opportunity for a fresh start, playing next to guys like AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates, and ironically the guy he was just benched for, Mike Hughes. Early into his Falcons career, it was more of the same for Okudah. Injuries. He went down in August during training camp with an ankle injury, which held him out for weeks 1 and 2. He did make it back for week 3, and of course it happened to be against his former team, the Detroit Lions. He had to answer questions about the trade obviously, but he said he felt indifferent and that the trade worked out for both sides. His return did not result in much time on the field, only playing 11 snaps and resulting in 1 target. From weeks 5 through 13, Okudah started every game and had a mediocre season in coverage, allowing a 94 passer rating in his direction and 65% of passes to be completed. He missed week 14 with an ankle injury and just like the season prior, got benched late in the year. After his lone season in Atlanta where he played 13 games, Okudah's rookie contract had expired and was set to be a free agent for the first time in his career. He was still just 25 years old, and with that high pick pedigree, there were bound to be some teams interested. Early in 2024's free agency, Okudah signed a 1-year, $6 million deal with the Houston Texans, joining a team that was on the come-up and under defensive-minded head coach DeMeco Ryans. A week later, Houston signed CJ Henderson, another another top 10 cornerback pick from the 2020 class that got off to a slow start in his career. Then on draft night, Houston took cornerback Kamari Lassiter in the second round. Playing time was not going to be a given for Okudah. Reports came out that Okudah struggled in summer practices, already putting him behind Henderson and Lassiter on the depth chart. He did end up making the team, but the injury bug bit early as Okudah hurt his hip in week 1 and he was placed on the IR. He'd missed the next 9 games, but was eventually activated in week 11. It did not go well for him as Okudah was responsible for allowing 77 yards and a touchdown in his return. He gave up this 64-yard touchdown to Kevontae Turpin on a slant route, and I'm assuming the coaches were not happy as they made Okudah a healthy inactive the following week. He would only play in 4 games the rest of the season, mainly on special teams, and did suffer a concussion in week 17, keeping him out the final week of the regular season. In the Texans' 2 playoff games, Okudah played just 1 defensive snap and was relegated to special teams. With his time in Houston not going as planned, it was time to find a new home in the 2025 offseason. A week after free agency opened, reports came out that Okudah was visiting the Minnesota Vikings. He ended up signing a 1-year deal with the Vikes worth over $2 million. Having just turned 26 a couple of months ago, there's still a tiny bit of hope that maybe we have not seen the best version of Okudah, but it does seem far-fetched. If D'Amico Ryans and Brian Flores can't fix him, then I give up. So after that whole summary, how did one of the most hyped cornerback prospects completely fall off in what felt like a blink of an eye? I think you have to start with the injuries. It's the clear denominator for almost every season he's played. The main one, of course, that likely zapped his athleticism was the Achilles in week 1 of 2021. His rookie season was the hamstring, shoulder, and eventual groin surgery that ended his season. In 2022, it was a concussion, although he did play a career-high 15 games that season. In 2023's training camp, he had the ankle injury that costed him a few games, and in 2024, he missed half the season with that hip sprain. Ever since the Achilles injury, he just never looked the same athletically. When drafted, this was a guy at the combine who ranked 95th percentile or better in the 10-yard split, vertical leap, and broad jump. He was a ridiculous athlete. His speed was never elite, but still above average, coming in at 4.48 on the 40-yard dash. Unfortunately, after the devastating Achilles injury, he was not able to regain the physically dominant version of himself that we saw in college. He didn't have the recovery speed, couldn't track the ball in the air most times, and most importantly, his confidence was probably shot. Not just the confidence in trusting his own body, but the confidence dip he saw once star NFL wide receivers started routinely beating him. There was also the garbage coaching he received during his pivotal rookie year. We've heard all the negativity around Matt Patricia, then Okudah himself, who's not very outspoken, even took a shot at him after he was fired. There were even reports that Patricia did not want to draft Okudah and preferred Isaiah Simmons or Derek Brown, but Patricia shot that down for obvious reasons. It really looked like Okudah was going to be everything he was supposed to be during that first half of 2022, but it didn't last. As he's about to enter his 6th year in the NFL, I wonder if the Vikings will try him at safety. I think it could be a good idea because Okudah is still a really good tackler, clearly has trouble locating the ball when his back is turned, and may just be too slow to play corner. I do hope he succeeds the second half of his career because ultimately he seems like a good guy. Obviously, he went through a lot losing his mother at a young age and has battled back from so many injuries. Hopefully this next stop in Minnesota is the one that's best for him. Of course, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you guys next time.